through individuation, the way through conscious healing and self-revelation is purification. And through these quotes, you notice it's not a one-and-done quick deal. It takes a while as he was still purifying his self, or rather the unconscious aspects of his self, at the end of Liber Secundus. And it took that initial waking up to realize he was living somewhere else, away from himself, that got the whole process started. And lastly, purification, as you've noticed, with his dragging himself through hell, it's not an only good aspect. It's not what you think is holy, because what Jung says is holy is both good and evil. Now, to truly grasp what is going on, we got to get into the psyche. I don't want to spend hours on breaking down the conscious, the unconscious, and all of its parts, but bringing up the whole and looking at some parts will help us really explain purification. I want to mention it is only a model. It is not fact, but it is pointing you towards the invisible. So with that, we begin with a circle. This will represent the whole psyche. And then we're going to split this circle into 3 sections that all fade into each other. The conscious, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The top realm of consciousness is everything that is experienced. This realm is labeled by Jung as the ego, our personal subjective scope of consciousness. This is your I, again, what you are experiencing. Here the idea of will is exercised and personas are formed as we shape how we wish the world to see us, both from our beliefs as well as others. The next realm is the personal unconscious, or sometimes known as the subconscious. This is where our complexes and patterns of behaviors lie. Our personal shadows and traumatic and fulfilling memories are found. Under this, our deepest traumas and memories that have not been realized start blending into what is known as the abyss. This is the deepest and largest layer, as it increases scope exponentially with depth into infinity. And this realm is known as, in Jungian terms, the collective unconscious, a realm shared within all. Here lie ancestral memories and traumas, archetypal forces, and deep intuitional patterns of behavior. The entire psyche, as we have just outlined, as one, would be represented as the self. And with that, I should mention, just because the personal and collective unconscious are titled unconscious does not mean they're unconscious, but rather unconscious to consciousness or to the ego. For example, you smell a scent, or you hear a piece of music, or you see an image, and suddenly you're brought back to an older memory, an older time. The thoughts, the emotions, your entire being shifts, in a sense, out of time into that moment. That ability to receive that information out of your will because of what was experienced shows there's a lot more going on within you. And it's through this rather transcendental effect, which Jung titles the transcendent function, where we're able to gather information that we're not consciously aware of. Another transcendental function of the mind is the libido, and this is our desire. This is what shapes and moves consciousness. So if your whole life is living on money, your libido is going to be trapped in anything that may give you money, may make you lose money. As you see, it gets distorted. And lastly, on the psyche, I want to add this important idea of perception. It is in consciousness, in the ego, where perceptions are formed, where they're shaped, with their ties inwardly in the personal and even collective unconscious. In Latin, perception means to gather. So it's a gathering of what we've seen outwardly or inwardly through the unconscious, and then we perceive it into consciousness. So you see how there's more information that is pure before consciousness sees it. And it's that information that we're trying to get to. So to start on purification, I'm going to bring up two words that I really connected with when watching a lecture by Pierre Grimes. A lecture called The Religion of No Religion. You can find it on YouTube. And in it, he discusses these two words of fate and providence. Now, fate is to be bound to a certain outcome. You hear, oh, he or she was fated to react in that manner. And then providence can be broken up into pro, which is prior, and vidence, or videre in Latin, which means to see. So together it represents prior to seeing, prior to perception. So the story goes, we're born into this world, then our consciousness starts to get shaped and formed. Its perceptions, its unconscious patterns, its complexes are all there as we continue to live. And in this living and willing, through all that information, we continue building more complexes on top of complexes, on top of patterns, which then in turn fade our reality. You see, this is fate. Our complexes are our fate. We're fated by them. We're trapped in them. And that's the land of Maya. That's the land of illusion. That's the land that the majority of souls are trapped in. The majority of the libido is trapped in. It's outwardly extended and attached to its objects. And you see, all this Maya continues to feed into the unconscious. Distorted perceptions, unconscious complexes and shadows. And they're all waiting their day of that fated revelation. Without awakening to the psychic reality within oneself, an individual will continue to live a life of self-created illusion with the help of the world around them, without ever truly experiencing reality. One lives a fated existence and fades away unfulfilled into meaninglessness. And you see, with this, the ego is trapped. And in this trappings, there's really nowhere for the ego to go. You see, if it gives up, then there's no consciousness. And that doesn't mean the unconscious isn't still